Welcome. My name is Joseph Anderson, and today I'll be discussing how to match your products with QuickBooks. Today's demonstration will go over what field you should use in QuickBooks to match your products. How should you create products? Should you make them in your website first, or should you make them in QuickBooks first? As well as how to match products between QuickBooks and your website. We offer many ways, including a rules engine where you can add a dynamic rule to remove part of a SKU, or you can do a one-to-one matching of SKUs, or you could say if the SKU starts with or ends with a particular phrase, then map it to this product. So a little bit about me. I am the CEO and founder of Sync with Connects. I've worked with QuickBooks for the past 12 years. I'm the principal software developer, and I started writing the Connects for QuickBooks code back in 2011. I've helped set up hundreds of companies with QuickBooks Desktop. Many customers ask me, what fields should I match in QuickBooks? What's available? Well, for many users, we recommend the QuickBooks item name because it's a unique value. You can't have two products with the same item name. Now, if you use QuickBooks Online, they do have a SKU field. The issue with the SKU field is that it's non-unique, so you could have 10 to 15 items with the same SKU in there. Connects will detect that there's a duplicate product if the SKUs match and just say it's already there and make no new one. But again, we do recommend the item name. There are other fields in QuickBooks as well, such as sales description, but we can't use them at this time. With QuickBooks Desktop, you're very limited with what you can match. You do have the item name number field located on the top left of the item when you double click it. We can also do manufacturer part number, barcode, and a list of custom fields. But the problem with anything other than item name is that we have to pull your entire item list from QuickBooks, enumerate through each item, and find a match. For custom fields, for example, if you had 10,000 items, we'd have to pull all 10,000 items from your QuickBooks, loop through each custom field on each product until we found a matching SKU. Furthermore, it becomes more difficult to create products in QuickBooks under this scenario. We recommend using the item name because it's unique. You can use letters, numbers, underscores, spaces for your products to make it unique. We don't recommend any special characters, and this is why I don't recommend using a sales description field or a title, because a title can always change, but a SKU is something that will stay for a lifetime. So let's take a look at how our software would work with Shopify. You'll see here on the left it says SKU JMA red t-shirt, and we're going to map that SKU to the QuickBooks item name field. We're going to run our web connector, and I put mock here just as a quick test, and we let it run. And you can see here on the order that the JMA red t-shirt has mapped to the item code field. For some customers it says item code, item name, item number, but from a software developer perspective, we always refer to it as item name, and it's the unique value of the product in QuickBooks. So when your SKU is blank, we have nothing to put in, and we would end up putting in a phrase called unknown do not delete. So we always recommend that your gift cards or whatever you're selling has some sort of SKU. The problem with matching the title is that it can contain special characters. It could be blank. If you were to change your title on your website, that means that Connects would find no duplicate and make a new product. So that's why we always recommend using the SKU. So if you're adding new products, should you make them in QuickBooks? Should you make them in your website? Should you double enter? Well, if you track inventory in QuickBooks, then you don't want our software making new items in QuickBooks because we will sync no initial stock levels from your site. So when we make the new item, the stock level would say 0, and as you synced orders, the stock levels would go beneath 0, so you would have negative quantities. And depending on your version of QuickBooks or how you have it set up, you can't sell into the negatives, so your sales would fail to sync. Furthermore, you wouldn't be able to write off your cost of goods sold or know the accurate value of your inventory if you went into the negatives. Non-inventory items are okay, such as events or consulting fees, since there's no stock levels. You could easily do a historical sync. It's not going to really change anything. So in this particular case, we think it's best to let our software create items in your QuickBooks. The only downside of having us create the items is that during the setup of Connects, you have to specify income, asset, discount accounts, as well as your AR, so that when we're making all these items in your QuickBooks, it's going to have these default accounts. So you'll probably want to go into QuickBooks and edit your items when they're done. For initial imports, we recommend uploading a spreadsheet into your website or into QuickBooks. If you have QuickBooks online, you can click on the gearbox and there's an import data field. You can just choose products and services, upload a spreadsheet. They'll give you a spreadsheet that you can use if you want to try to map the fields. Most of the fields are arbitrary, but what's most important is that your SKU and your item name are identical. So what is the proper way to create products in QuickBooks? Do I double enter? Do I create them in one or do I create them in the other? We recommend you add the product to QuickBooks with the initial inventory after installing Connects. This will ensure that you have the proper stock levels and that as a stock in your website changes, your QuickBooks and your website will be in sync. So if you add a product to QuickBooks and has a stock quantity of 6, you use the same spreadsheet to add the product back to your website, you sell 2 on your website, now you have 4 in both systems. This also ensures that you have the proper account set up for your products in QuickBooks. So you may want to have a different account for selling apparel versus selling electronics. If Connects were to make new items, it would use the same default income account for everything, so you wouldn't be able to separate your sales by what you're selling. During the Connect setup, you can instruct our software to make new items on your website. And when the sync runs, the software will create the items and it will mention it in the log. One of the downsides with this approach is that we don't sync pictures, so you have to log into your site and edit the products after we sync them. We can update fields like, is it active, the SKU, the description. We can do a product title, SKU, stock quantity, but we're limited as to what fields we can sync. For example, we don't sync product dimensions from QuickBooks to your site. So you'd end up having to, once our tool makes them, go back into your site and edit them. Now it's probably fine if you have like variants, like if you sold shoes and you just wanted to create a size 9 or a size 10 because you just need to sync over a SKU and a color and a size. But as you can see, pretty much whatever's in QuickBooks we could sync. Barcode is something we could pull over, manufacturer part number, categories, unit price, vendor, purchase cost. We have a product preview or a grid, and you can see how the fields are matched from QuickBooks to your site. You could also use our rules engine to say, well, if the QuickBooks vendor is ABC, then map it to XYZ on my website. So let's say you can't match your SKUs and your items. For example, maybe you're on Amazon and you have multiple listings for the same SKU, and the SKU is 1 and then 1-FBA, 2-FBA2. Is there a way that you can add some rules to map them all to one single product? Because it's a really bad practice to have multiple products for the same item in QuickBooks. And there's a couple ways you can do this. You could upload a one-to-one mapping. You can get a spreadsheet, and there's going to be a map from and a map to value that just has your product SKU in your website and your QuickBooks item name in the other. This is good for a smaller list. You could also add a rule that says if your SKU ends with FBA, then remove the -FBA. This is useful when you have multiple listings. So a lot of companies will have a product with a SKU and they'll have some sort of prefix or suffix, and you can just tell our software to remove that suffix or prefix, and that way it'll always map to the same item. So instead of uploading 10,000 different items via a spreadsheet, you could just have a handful of rules, which is a lot easier to manage. We also offer a product mapping tool, and I'll be sure to include that in the handout. This is ideal for a really small volume of items, and it's actually enabled by default when you do the two-way inventory sync. So you go into QuickBooks and you add your stock changes and sync them back to your site, because you don't want our software making items in QuickBooks with a 0 stock quantity. The way it works is you'll sync orders. The software will notify you that these orders fail to sync because the products are missing, you'll be given an option to map them in our software, and you can pick from a list of existing products in your QuickBooks, and then our software will resync them. So let's summarize today's demonstration. You should match your QuickBooks item name to your website SKU, and you should make sure that all of your products have a SKU, even if they're non-inventory, because a SKU is a constant value. You should have no special characters, so letters, numbers, underscores, spaces are fine. Instead of doing a one-to-one matching, we recommend using a rule to remove part of a SKU. So instead of uploading 100 different SKUs of 101 is 100 in QuickBooks, 102 is 100, and so forth and so on, you could easily add a rule to say if the SKU starts with the number 10, then map it to 100. Now, we do have a product mapping tool if you're unsure if the products in QuickBooks and your website are a match, and it can easily alert you that your products have no SKUs, and it's good for a much smaller number of items. For initial syncs, such as if you're importing your products from QuickBooks to your website for the first time, we recommend spreadsheets. And what I don't recommend is that you keep uploading spreadsheets of data from QuickBooks to your site. If that's the road that you must go down, you should omit the stock quantity fields. I had a customer who was uploading spreadsheets of information, and he uploaded the stock quantity field and whether the product was inventory, and that actually went into his website, wiped out his stock, and wiped out his stock levels. So you should use us to do the syncing once the initial setup has taken place. Connects can do an initial sync of your items and products for smaller lists, but if you had several thousand, the spreadsheet's the best. And finally, I recommend that Connects creates items for you moving forwards. You could easily go into your QuickBooks, add a new product with the right income accounts, add the stock levels, and when we do the inventory sync, our software will detect that the item is missing and just make it for you. And then you can go into your site and add pictures and make any minor tweaks. So after this, if you're still experiencing sync issues, what's the best way to contact us? If you go to help.synkwithconnects.com, you can click on the submit a ticket on the top right, and you can just detail some of the errors that you have. What sync dates did you try? Show us any duplicate products, stock changes that failed to sync, and we will respond within 1 business day. Thank you.